like it's surprising. Oh, like, I was like surprised. I think he did ice the kind of football and threw a bunch
All
of
right, so
questions on
today
it.
we are starting P2. So we all have our notes out. Luke? It's up to you here. Here we go. All right, so we're going to start with a little conversation about what's called the Cartesian coordinate plane. And you guys are used to, you know what this is. This is called the Cartesian coordinate plane. So vocabulary associated with the plane, what do we call this point right here? That's called the origin. Now, when we get to chapter 6, we'll be calling it, we'll have a different setup, but right now, that's going to be the origin, just like it's always been for you. What do we call this line? X-axis, yep, we're not going to get these confused. This is X, and then this one is Y. Then the axes divide up the plane into 4 pieces called quadrants. And all over the whole world, the quadrants are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. So if Mrs. Ford gives you a point and says in which quadrant it is, I mean, if I ask you which quadrant is it in, you'll be able to tell me. If it's here, it's 1, if it's here, it's 3, and so on. Okay? Now, we're going to do some work with these 4 little pairs, with these coordinates. Anybody have an idea what this means? Take a wild guess. You're probably going to be right. What? Well, it has to do with the 2 coordinates. This means the distance from A to B. Or in other words, if you connected those, it would be the length of that segment. Anybody remember how to find the distance between 2 points in the coordinate plane? If I say, Miss Green, what are you thinking over there? I see your finger moving around. What are you thinking about?
Is it like the y minus 1?
Okay, you're close. You're in the right, like, general area. When we do y minus y over x minus x, that isn't the distance, that is the slope. We'll be doing that when we write the equation of a line and we know how to find the slope. How about if I did this? Would that jog your memory? Well, no, but we need that too. We need the quadratic formula. That's the negative b plus or minus the square root thing. We need that, not here, but we do need to know that. That's another piece of must-know stuff. How about if I did this? Does that look familiar? Let me write the formula up here. I want to remind all of you, though, that probably at no point in your life ever is somebody going to say to you, write down the distance formula. It's not the formula that's important, it's that you know how to use it. All right, but I'll write the formula down. Does that look like you've seen it before? Please nod because you have. You saw it in geometry, you saw it last year. So, I counted this as x1, y1. Remember, a point is an x and a y. And this as x2, y2. Doesn't matter. And then I subtract my x's. Now, I did 7 minus negative 1. since you're squaring, you can do -1 minus 7. It doesn't matter. Subtract your x's. Square it. So what is 7 minus -1? 8. And 8 squared is, all right, so we have 64. What's 1 minus 3? -2. And -2 squared is positive, positive, positive. No negatives under here, guys. Always gonna be positive because you're squaring and adding. That's gonna be 4. So the square root is 68. Now, every time we run into a radical, what do we have to think about? Maybe breaking it down. Alright, so I don't know how you do it. Here's how I do it. I know that 68 is 2 times 34. And 34 is 2 times 17. So I broke my 68 down, then I broke my 34 down. Now I have a 2, a 2, and a 17. I'm done breaking, right? When you simplify, anything you have 2 of comes out. So your final answer, if you want 100% credit, you have to write 2 root 17. Now, I know that some of you have those little calculators. I know Mrs. Hollis is a huge fan of them, and they simplify your radicals for you. You won't have that in this class, so you need to be able to reduce your radicals. So here's one strategy to do it. You may have other strategies. All right, now, the next problem is exactly the same. So would you and your partner find AB if A is 2, 6 and B is -5, 1? All right, get to it.
It's always good to try.
If it breaks down, don't forget to break it down.
Yeah, but it's -7.
Choose something.
I was like, bro, what?
Yeah.
6 plus 1
Is it 3?
2 minus 1.
Is it 6? It's 6.
No.
Two of them, they come out.
All right, we should have an answer by now.
Wait, so
Macy,
right?
what'd you say? Square root what?
We said we were confused on whether it was square root of 74 or 2 square root of 37.
Okay, so get me to the square root of 74. Let's see how we do it.
Okay, so in parentheses, or it's square root, and then in parentheses it's -5 minus 2 squared, and then plus, in parentheses, 1 minus 2 squared.
1 minus 6.
Yeah, 1 minus 6.
All right, so then you did your math. This became -7 squared is 49.
Oh.
This was -5 squared is 25. So that's where she got the root 74. Okay? And then I'm standing up here saying, remember to reduce. So they, I guess, maybe said 74 is 2 times 37. Now remember, if you're going to reduce it, you gotta have 2 of something. Remember before, I can't remember what we had, but we had a 2, a 2, and a 17 or something like that? So we can make that 2 root 17. Can you make this one anything? No. How many of you got root 74? Hands up, let's go. Okay, if we didn't, you need to figure out what went wrong. Okay, you need to figure out what you did wrong. Okay, Vanessa and Esty, would you guys come up here together and do this one? Same thing, different points, okay? If you need help from another team, make them come up too. And what are the rest of you doing? Doing it.
I don't know.
Remember to break it down if it breaks down.
Screwed up. They're both negatives. Yeah, no, it's still nine.
Well, they're done already. They got root 13. So you got it? And it doesn't break down, obviously 13 is a prime number. So there we go. Who has a question about that? No? Good? All right. At some point in the not too distant future, there will be a quiz. And I can pretty much guarantee that one thing you're gonna have to be able to do on the quiz is use the distance formula. All right? We got it. Now we're gonna talk about midpoint. So here we go, number 3. We've got these 2 points, and we wanna find the midpoint of segment AB. The midpoint, the middle value. If we talk about the middle value, we're talking about an average. Midpoint is average. How do I find an average? If you give me 2 things, how do I find their average? Add them up and divide by 2. So if I want the average x, I'm going to add them up and divide by 2. So the average x of these 2 points is 5/2 or 2.5 if you're a decimal person, doesn't matter one bit. I'm going to say 5/2. What is the average y? Add them and divide by 2, you get. That's all there is to it, kids. Midpoint is average. Midpoint is average. All right, go ahead and do B. Tell me what you get. What is the, for gives you one more point. Go ahead and figure it out.
3.
Remember, you gotta average the x's, and you gotta average the y's. They're separate. So you do x's together and you do y's together. So, what'd you get?
I got -3.5.
He's doing decimals, -3.5, positive 3.5. Is that what everybody got? I did it correct, it's decimal for 5. All right. Switching gears to something that may not be as familiar to you, although I think you probably did it last year. This is the equation of a circle. So if we graph this, the shape would be a circle. Anything with an x squared plus a y squared is going to be a circle. So this second one is also a circle. Now you're thinking, wait a minute, that looks different. It does. But if we FOIL this out, you know how to FOIL, x minus 2, x minus 2. And likewise here, would that equation have an x squared plus a y squared in it? Now it would have a bunch of other stuff too, but it definitely has an x squared plus y squared. And if it has that, it's a circle. No matter what else, it's a circle. Okay? Now, I need these are both circles, and I need the center and the radius. This one is actually easier. The center is 2, -3. Wait a minute, where'd that come from? The center is 2, -3. Where'd it come from? It's the opposite of what's in the parentheses. The radius is the square root of 15. Where did that come from? I square rooted that number right there. Guys, it's that easy. Your center is the opposite of what you've got here. And your radius is the square root of whatever you've got over here. So what about this first one? What do you think? What? What you want? Okay, that's a great guess. It's not, because look at this. If it were 1, wouldn't it look like this? That center would be 1, 1. You're on the right track. This green?
Is it -1? -1?
That actually would be this. Remember, your center is the opposite of whatever's in the parentheses. Well, time out. What's in the parentheses here? This word, there's nothing in the parentheses. Okay, what's nothing?
0.
0. Your center for here is the origin. If you wanted, could you write this like this? If you wanted to, could you write it that way? Is that the same thing? We don't usually, but if you want to, you certainly can. And what's our radius?
16.
Watch it, it's the square root of that number, so it would be square root of 16. Now let's see if any of that sank in. Can you do it backwards? Look at 5A. If the center is 1, 4, and the radius is 6, can you turn that into an equation that looks like this one? what would that look like with this center and this radius?
X, minus 1.
X minus 1, don't forget the square, plus y minus 4 squared. That's it. That's all there is to it, you guys. Oh my gosh. Circles are our friends. They are so easy. Your center was at 1, 4, so x minus 1, y minus 4. The radius was 6, so 36. What's b? You can tell me what b is the equation. X plus 3. Everybody get plus there? Because it's technically minus a negative. It's opposite. So x plus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 100. Beautiful. You got that? Alright, because now we got a doozy. Now we're going to write the equation of the circle. So we're going to write something that looks like this. That's our goal. But all we know is we've got a circle out there. And his diameter, all right, you familiar with that word, diameter? His diameter has endpoints at -1, 5, and 3, 7. So somehow from that information, you're going to write an equation that looks like that. All right, let's think about that for a second. Anybody have an idea? What do I need to know to build this? Samantha, what do I need to know to build this? I need to know the center. All right, let's take a look at our scenario. There's the center. Can I figure out what that is? Yeah, because the center is going to be the midpoint of the diameter. So now we're going to find midpoint, and we're going to find midpoint because it's the average. So -1 and 3. What is the average of -1 and 3? Now, Mrs. Ford is old, and I do this for a living, so all that's going in my head. You might write it down. To find an average, I add my two numbers and divide by 2. So -1 plus 3 is 2. Divided by 2 is 1. Come on, you can do that. And the same thing with the y's. 5 plus 7 divided by 2. So there's your midpoint. Now, at this moment, you can build most of your equation. Remember, you're writing a circle, so it's going to be x minus 1
squared plus the
y.
minus 6 squared.
Yep. Yep, perfect. Now, what's missing? What else do I need? What do I need to know to find this number? I need to know the radius. And the radius is a distance. Would you agree with that? Now, I just drew that one. Could I have done this one right here? And if I really want to get wild and crazy, could I do this? Yes, as long as I divided it by 2. I don't care, do it. Just figure out it somehow. So you're going to do the distance formula. So I'm using these 2 points. You can use whichever ones you want. This is going to be the big radical. So 3 minus 1, 7 minus 6, 2, squared is 4. 7 minus 6 is 1, squared is 1. So my radius is root 5. Please, don't put root 5 here. This is always r squared. Remember when the radius was 10, you put 100 here? So what is root 5 squared? Careful. It's 5. It's just plain old 5. When you square a square root, they cancel, and it's just 5. So here is the answer to the question. GTQ, guaranteed test question. Because for that one question, I test lots of different skills, right? So let's back up, try another one real quick. We'll review it in the period if we have time. How did we go about this problem? We started with these 2 points. What did we do first? Midpoint by averaging. And that gave us this part of the equation. Then what did we do? Distance somewhere, I did these 2, you could have done other sets. This distance right here, that gave me the radius. I squared it, and I was done. Absolute value. 6a, tell me the answer. 1. Okay, when you do absolute value, okay, remember PEMDAS? P is the parentheses. These get treated like parentheses. You have to do what's inside first. So first you add -3 and 2, and then you take the absolute value. Alright, so this is the absolute value of -1, which is 1. Can you figure out B? I heard someone say -1. I'm seeing some nodding heads because the first absolute value works out to be 3. The second one works out to be 4. And 3 minus 4 is -1. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What about C?
0.
I heard a 0.
Wait, for B, would you put in absolute group, like, take it out of
Okay, now, we do each absolute value independently. Okay, so this would be the absolute value of -3, which is 3. No more absolute value. I did it, it's gone. This is the absolute value of 4, which is 4. No more absolute value. So I end up with 3 minus 4. Alright, one answer to C was 0. Did anybody get anything different? You think it is 0? You're right. It's 5 minus 5, which is 0. Alright, and finally, what about D? 14. Each one individually, 7 plus 7. P2, done. Alright, do Wednesday. P2, do Wednesday. Let's try P3.
It's only 10.
Alright, my friends, let's focus ourselves. We have math to do. Is -2 a solution? The answer is yes or no. Tell me your work. How you doing? Is it a solution? Yeah? How'd you figure that out? So one minus 12. If it's an answer, it has to work. All right, so what's negative 2 squared? 4. What's negative 4 times negative 2? 8. Does that work out to be 0? Yes? Did anyone have a different idea? Because this problem could be done a different way. That is fine. That's beautiful. 100%. There is another way. Can I think of it? Everybody did it that way? All right.
Could you do quadratic formula?
Absolutely. Or this one actually factors. So certainly you could do the quadratic formula. You could also just factor it like this. So x minus 6, x plus 2, which means x is 6 and x is negative 2. Absolutely. Perfect. You could actually solve the equation. Nicely done. All right, which are linear equations? Now, this is totally not fair because I haven't given you any rules about linear equations, but just your gut feeling. Which ones do you think either are or aren't? I don't know. What do you think about any of them? Do you think any of those are linear or any of them aren't linear? What? E? What do you think about E? It is or isn't? It is. E is definitely linear. E is linear because x is to the first power. And that's what it means to be linear. David?
Is F not linear?
F is not linear. Do you know what F is, David?
Is non-linear?
It's non-linear, absolutely. It's quadratic. What does quadratic mean? Soon we'll be talking about quadratics. Those are x squared. Those are these things. The kind where we use the quadratic formula. Those have squares. If you have a squared, you're not linear. Perfect. Okay, anybody notice anything about the rest of them?
A is linear.
A is linear. A is linear. Very good. What? Is C linear? Now, guys, this is a tricky one because Miss Ford stood up here and said you can only have x to the first power. I want you to look carefully. Where is that x? And when it's in the denominator, if I moved it up so that the equation were in a straight line, what would be the power? Negative 1. No, you can't have a denominator. You can't have x in the denominator. So C is not, because you can't have an x in the denominator. Because an x in the denominator means your power is not 1, it's something else. All right? What do you think about B? Again, this might be out of your scope, although probably not. You probably did this last year. When you put x under a radical, its power becomes a fraction. The square root of x is x to the 1/2. So you cannot have x under the radical. So you can't have an x in the denominator because that would be negative. Can't have an x under the radical because that would be a fraction. And you can't have any power other than a 1, so you can't have a square. All right, what do you think about D? That's the only one left. No. And what are you going to say there? You can't have an x in the denominator, and you sure can't have a power of 2, right? Anywhere. So do you feel like if I were to give you an equation, that you could tell me if it were linear or not? Let's vote. Who says this is linear? Those are the right answers. Now, I deliberately put that radical in there to trick you, but what's the rule? No x under the radical. Numbers are fine. Owen, you watching that clock? I saw those lines go over there. I used to have a sign years ago. It said, I hung it right by the clock, and it said, "Time will pass, will you?" They made me take it down because it was hurting your self-esteem. I don't have a problem with that. Don't watch the clock. We're gonna get out of your seat now. All right, everybody good? You can find linear or not, right? Everybody good? Okay. Now we're, in our remaining time together, we're gonna solve some equations. And I know you've had a long day. If you would like to come up and solve some, we can get probably 3 of these up here. So remember, you never have to come by yourself. You can bring someone with you. Let's get the first 3 solved. And if you don't come to the board, you have, bless you, you have to do it at your seat. My goodness, you okay? Yeah. We're solving equations, and we're coming to the board if we feel comfortable solving any of these. Yeah, you don't have to raise your hand. First come, first serve. Grab us.
That one you just, it's the same thing.
All right, we're all doing it. If you are at your seat and you finish the first 3, go ahead and work on.
Boom.
So you can come up and put some more on the board for this. We are solving linear equations.
You think it sounds right?
You don't think it's right?
Oh, I don't know what D is. I have no idea.
D is right.
Half the battle right there, just trying it. All right, let's see how they did up here, folks. Showed a little work here, added 9 to both sides, divided by 2, equals 6. Okay, if you didn't get that, it's your responsibility to ask, okay? You got it? All right, over here, didn't show much work. When we're at the board, it probably should show a little more. Let's see, it looks like we added 6 and got 10, and then added 2x and got 5x,
We don't like the back.
and then divided by 5 and got 2. What do you think about that one? Good? Now, this one was a little tougher over here. Looks like to me, what what we did was get a common denominator? Okay, that would work. That'll work. I'm not saying that that is the way everybody has to do it, but if we want to set these two equal to each other, we can make the denominators match, which is what they did. And that gave us 10x over 15 equals 12 over 15. And then they said, okay, I'm going to times both sides by 15. Those are gone. And just common sense would say 10x equals 12, so x equals 12 tenths. I'm going to give that almost an A+. What's wrong with it?
I guess.
6 fifths. 6 fifths. You guys did
So it
great.
cancels out.
You guys did absolutely great. That is a good way to do it. Did anybody think of something else?
So good.
How many, oh yeah, go ahead.
Can you like cancel out the x by doing 3 over 2?
Okay, well, you're not canceling out the x then, you're canceling out
Or
the
the
fraction.
fraction.
Yeah, so I'm gonna erase this for a second, this is beautiful. But how many of you had Mrs. Field? Alright, so you know, you have Mrs. Field. She always told you to solve these by multiplying by the reciprocal. Because when you multiply by the reciprocal, don't these all cancel out? And x equals 12 tenths, which is 6 fifths. Did anybody think about dividing those sides by 2/3? Now, I'm not a big fan of dividing by fractions, but you can. What do you do when you have 4/5 divided by 2/3? 4, keep, change, flip, and look what happens. You get 12 tenths. See what I mean? There's always lots of ways to do it. You never want to feel locked in. You have to do it this way. You don't. Find the way you like and do it that way. All right, let's get a couple more up here. More fractions. Let's try D and E. E is kind of long, so I probably can't get any more than that. So a new set of volunteers. Thank you, everyone who came to the board. You're amazing. And you are appreciated. Right, here's D. I need someone to come up here, or a group of people, somebody wants to come up and do that. And then E.
It's just a lot of work. Distribute.
You want new people?
I would love to have new people, but if no new people come, old people can go. Then you're one joy there. Any other new people? Come on, you chicken livers, somebody up here. Angie, you can do it. Bring him with you. Bring someone with you. Now, what are the rest of us doing? We're out on vacation.
You can
Just try it. Think of something to do. Ask your neighbor.
I don't think it's really because that can't divide from one.
You just do it right.
No,
Which color was you doing?
class day to get a notebook, and I want a notebook and downstairs, okay? Please don't forget your math league sign-up money.
Okay, good.
Y'all wanna do that, trust me. I'm gonna wait a minute, let y'all catch up. They did it real fast. You guys are working on two of them. So see how your answers compare with theirs.
I completely forgot the third.
Well, no, I didn't.
When you lunch is
Did you get You're probably right. And then -4 times
Yeah, it's 8.
15 minus 6 is 7. And 52 minus 6 is 6. So you have 13. And then 7 divided by 7. You're probably right.
All right, let's talk about D. Whoever did D loves fractions and knows how to handle fractions. And that's great, that's fine. Whoever did this said, I'm gonna move this 1/4 over, so minus 1/4. 1 minus 1/4 is 3/4. Then I'm gonna divide by a third, so 3/4 divided by a third is 3/4 times 3 over 1. The answer is indeed 9/4. My experience has shown that not a whole lot of people love fractions. If you know fractions and you're good with fractions, that is beautiful. Absolutely perfect. Myself, I'm not a big fan of fractions, so I am going to get rid of the fractions. What is the common denominator between 3 and 4? 12. So I'm going to multiply everything by 12. 1/3 of 12 is 4, so that becomes a 4x. This becomes a plus 3. See what's going to happen? I'm going to get exactly the same answer without fractions. It doesn't matter how you do it. Both options are there. I love this because almost every time I do this problem, there's a mistake right here, but not this time. Did y'all catch that has to be minus 4? You're distributing a negative. So then she collected like terms and started moving stuff around. It's beautifully done. How many of you finished that problem and got 11 halves? Okay, that's awesome. If you didn't, let's figure out where you went wrong. All right? Figure out where you went wrong. Ask me if you need to. I'm going to pause right there. Where'd I put mine? Okay, did I lay my notes down somewhere?
She said there's probably
All right, listen. Tomorrow, we don't have class tomorrow. The next time we have class, I'm going to give you a practice quiz. And then the time after that, we're going to have the real quiz. Okay? So next time I see you, practice quiz, we'll be together in class. And then the time after that will be a real quiz. Okay? All right. Just a second. All right, let's go.